Bhagwan Shri Yogi Ramsuratkumar ki jai. Sarvam Yogi Ramsuratkumar arpanamastu. We can never thank Bhagwan Shri Yogi Ramsuratkumar sufficiently for all that he has been doing to us, especially making it possible for us to chant this mantra, which is a ready response to our call. We have to celebrate this grace that is so easily accessible at the mere call. We have been seeing day after day after day many happenings of His glory, His Nama's glory. We were able to relive them with the devotees who already experienced it. Now, many people ask me, Bhagwan living in the streets as a fakir. We understand he is not bathing for 40 years or so. Something we understand. He is wearing rags for clothes. Yes, we do understand. He is begging. His turban. He is carrying the emblems. The bowl for begging, and a hand fan for fanning his grace onto the devotees. And of course a stick. Now, the stick also they ask why. When we look at the Hindu gods, we see almost every god carrying weapons. On one side, the other side, it's all flower, Japa Mala, and a raised hand and benediction. Why would there be the presence of these weapons in the hands of God? It is God, His sportive spirit, has created both the good and the bad, and it is by His sankalpa there is always a clash between the good and the bad. And His job is to destroy the evil and re-establish the dharma of the good. For that, the weapons He takes in hand, a warning to all the evildoers. If you behave properly, if you follow dharma, here is my abhayahasta, my hand of grace. But if you play mischief and resort to evil methods, to become more and more selfish. Be warned. You see the weapons in my hand. I wouldn't hesitate to use them on you. To destroy not you, but the evil in you, the evil tendencies in you. So, all the gods, they're all very symbolic. It's not as if they carry a weapon and then strike you with it or anything. People can make any interpretation they want according to their standard of thinking. But the truth is, the God symbolically says, I will protect the good, the virtuous, and destroy the evil. This is what he repeatedly says in Bhagavad Gita. So it's no wonder Bhagavan carried a stick in his hand, and sometimes he would raise it and hold it like Sri Rama would hold his bow, like Kodandarama. Now the next question they ask is, why would he smoke? What was the point? He's a Mahatma, which means he should be an exemplary soul to the followers, whereas his very habit of smoking speaks otherwise. Why? Bhagwan, when he came to Tiruvannamalai as a sadhak, in fact from 4 years, in his gaon, in his village, Ramsurat, the little boy Ramsurat of 4 years, used to sit with the sadhus who passed that side on the banks of the Ganges with a dhuni fire in the middle, listening ecstatically to the stories and bhajans they exchanged. Often people found Ramsurat sitting in some corner or on the banks of the river with closed eyes. It looked as though meditation was his natural habit. So it's from the beginning, it was clear what he was going to be. He was a budding Mahatma, if one can use that expression. Now, even after his marriage, for 9 years he practiced severe austerities. He would not take anything that was cooked on fire. He would take raw vegetables, raw fruits, raw milk. For 9 years, year after year after year, he had taken only sattvic food. And he often declared he was doing it in order to divinize his body also, so that the body would be a good receptacle of the stormy energy, the serpent energy that's coiled up. Now such a one was given to severe austerities. How could he take to smoking? It doesn't fit in with the rest of his nature. Yes, truly so. If anybody smoked in the same room, either he would run away from the place or he would vomit. Such was his habit. He was not even able to tolerate people smoking in the same room. What was more, he was working as a teacher in a school, a strict disciplinarian. So how would he, if any student, a belligerent student, in order to show his resistance, would sometimes take to smoking just to offend the teacher. Of course, Bhagwan would deal with him fittingly. And what was more, he would correct and put them on the right path. He just wouldn't stop at rebuking. He would see to it that they walk on the right path. It was not complete without it. This is what sometimes I heard him say when a teacher came and expressed his problems. So such a man, how could he take to smoking? Is it possible for him to take to smoking for the joy of it? So once he said, when somebody asked him straight to the face why he was smoking, he said in the beginning, "Oh, this beggar's madness. This beggar is very bad. This beggar is very mad. You see, he's crazy, he's lazy. He doesn't do any work. He begs you people, and you people put some coins into his begging bowl. And then this beggar buys cigarettes and smokes all the time. This lazy, crazy beggar." This is how he answered. And then the man, of course, he knew better than that. He pushed ahead, determined to get an answer from him. And finally, Bhagwan admitted that in the beginning it was very difficult for him to be with people, whereas his mission was with them. When he died at the lotus feet of Papa Ramdas in 1952, when he wanted to continue to serve his master, Swami Ramdas, in Anandashram itself, Swami Ramdas said, "No, you go out into the forest of the world. Get seasoned by its harsh weathers. You have a mission out there with the people. And he sent him away. Before that, he asked Bhagwan, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, "Where would you go? Ramdas wants you to go. But where would you go?" Pat came the reply from Bhagwan, "Tiruvannamalai." But then it took 7 years for him to reach Tiruvannamalai, and that was in 1959. It was during this wandering time he had come across people, many types of people, with different cultures, different backgrounds, different walks of life. He saw their strengths and weaknesses and what he needed to do. But it was very difficult for him to be with the dense vibrations of people. He was unable, in fact, in the beginning, those people who were with him, like Jagannathan of Pondicherry, if more than 5 people, if he saw some 5 or 6 people, a group approaching or a crowd, he would just run away from the place, just as Ramakrishna Paramahamsa used to do. As soon as he saw the head of somebody climbing up the steps of the Ganges god, he would go into hiding. Bhagwan would simply run away from the place. This is what Jagannathan reports. Even if one person, sometimes when he was busy doing his father's work, now he had to be with people for his mission. That is when his Supreme Father said, "Take to smoking. You will not vomit. You will not have to run away. It will help you to do my work." This is what Bhagwan said. Father said, "You take to smoking. It will help my work." And that's how this beggar began to smoke. Also, it's a habit with many North Indian masters to smoke. If we remember, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa had this hubble bubble, and Sri Aurobindo used to smoke the long cigar. There were many other people. I think Nisargadatta Maharaj also. It is not something, because these great masters are beyond habits. They are beyond anything that we can visualize. It's not a habit or addiction with them. It is a convenience for doing some work. When Ramakrishna Paramahamsa used to go into Samadhi, if he wanted to return to the body, he would develop a certain desire. He would say, "Give me a cup of water." And the desire for a cup of water would bind him down to the body, so he would be able to come back from the Samadhi. So these people would develop something like this to carry on the work of the divine. In fact, there were times Bhagwan would mock at people who would copy this addiction, this habit from Bhagwan. He would say, "Oh, you see how bad this beggar is, how crazy. This beggar knows only to smoke." And then he would laugh and laugh. "But don't you copy this from this beggar. This beggar is bad, all right. But you should not be bad. You have to follow the rules of dharma." And then sometimes in lighter vein he would say, if people cannot follow this beggar's Namajapa, if they cannot find any virtue in this beggar to follow, then they follow the smoking. They copy the smoking from this beggar. But that will not make them this beggar. And then he would go into peals of laughter. I remember one particular incident when I was in Sannidhi Street House. Outside the small veranda, Bhagwan was sitting on the top platform. There were 2 levels. On the upper platform, he was sitting in the same row. I was sitting on the lower platform. Bhagwan had this square-shaped ashtray. It looked so much like a homakunda. He was smoking and using this ashtray. Now one day there was a long queue. In those days, the queue became longer and longer by the day. So he would allow people to come one by one. So whenever he started this one by one spiritual ministry, and if you're smoking, he would hand it over to somebody near. I'd seen L.I. Jayaraman, Sri Rajgopal, Sri Swaminathan. From time to time, he would hand over the cigarette to them and then bless the following person, 1 or 2 or 3, with Ram Ram, a pat on the back, or simply, "My father blesses you." And then as soon as they left, he would take back the cigarette from their hands and continue smoking. Now, when this was going on, this one-by-one ministry, spiritual ministry, and we were all singing, sitting there and singing his name, suddenly 3 or 4 people appeared. They came straight, not joining the queue, and they were talking a little loudly, one to the other. The one was reprimanding the others. Look, why would you people bring me to this man? Just see how dirty he is. And what's more, he's smoking, chain smoking. What a weakness for a great master. Why would you bring me here? I want to go away. Come, let's go. He doesn't fit in. He is no Mahatma at all. Let's go. Listening to this conversation and seeing them walking away, I felt very hurt and I was boiling inside. How dare they make this judgment without knowing what is involved in all these things. I felt very deeply hurt, and then I looked back and I saw how Bhagwan was slogging day and night for the sake of those people who didn't even know that he was blessing them. His smoking was symbolic of his smoking away the karmas of people. I had seen him, as soon as people entered his presence, he would pull out a cigarette, and depending upon the situation and the mindset of the visitor, his background, sometimes he would smoke the full cigarette, sometimes he would stop with half, sometimes just a little of it, and sometimes he would just light it and put out. I had no idea what calculations were involved in those gestures, but I knew very surely that he knew what he was doing. He had often said no gesture of his would go waste. Everything, every gesture, every look, every word he uttered, every step that he took, every sweep of his hand was being put to use by Father for his work. This is what he used to declare from time to time. So the smoking, and there would be no smell also. There would be no smoke either. It was very strange. He would do it in the North Indian fashion, and there would be no smoke, neither the smell. And in Sudama, every day, especially this ashram was being built, and he was working so hard. This ashram was extra burden to him. And at the end of the day, there would be 5 or 6 empty boxes of cigarette. You can imagine how much he would have smoked all through the day. It was not only when the people were present, otherwise also he would be completely lost in his work, all the time smoking. So at the end of the day he would drop 5 or 6 empty cigarettes into my hand. At Sannidhi Street House also, he would just throw it away. In the beginning, how it started, if he found an empty box, then he would crush it into a clump and then throw it away. Once he did that, he threw it, and it came and landed right in front of me. Immediately, I just took it and preserved it as treasure. He gave me a glance. He frowned and said, "Why would you take that? Throw it away." I said, "No, Bhagwan, I want to keep it. It's from you." "It's only an empty cigarette, Devaki. What would you do with this?" "No, Bhagwan, it's not empty. It's full of your work, what you are doing for people, what you are doing for the world." Immediately he smiled, raised his hand and blessed me, and after that he started to give me, whenever I was present, he would immediately call me near and then drop the empty cigarette box into my hand. In fact, at one point there used to be competition. I've heard people ask him, "You are giving her, please give me one." So you see, it is no addiction with these people. And if you go to Sudama, you would see some 5,000 and odd empty cigarette boxes. When I had a huge collection of them in those 7 years, when Bhagwan lived at Sudama, he asked me very curiously, "What would you do with this, Devaki?" I said, "They all are symbolic of your work, the work that you've already done. So I would build a temple with it." Then again he blessed me, and after his samadhi, I tried out many sources to get a temple built. I asked those sophisticated people if they could do something, some professional building of a temple with cigarette box, unheard of, yet that was what I had in my mind. But none of them could do it. Finally, our ashram carpenter, a very simple man, Venkatesan, he said, "Amma, why are you asking those people? I can do it myself." And in a day he had it built. In a very simple way. Even now people could go to Sudama and see. It's in the form of a chariot. So, let us not become judgmental. I remember once I was sharing this experience of Sri Ramanujachari and Agaram Jayaraman. They had brought a mango from Tatacharya's garden, the famous garden of Srirangam, for mangoes. So as soon as they brought it in, Bhagwan took the mango in his hand, held it for a long time, and then said, "You see this mango, this is green, complete green. Just looking at it, people would think that it is not ripe, so it would be sour. And they might not even attempt to eat it. But this beggar says it's a very ripe fruit and very sweet." One should not judge, especially the great masters, by their appearance. They may look very simple, insignificant, and a mere nobody. Yet they are established in God all the time, and they do God's work. There may be people outside looking very pious with all the marks, and they may look very impressive, and people may take them for a great person, but they would be doing something else. And then Bhagwan laughed. Something very unfitting. So one should never judge people by the appearance. This I read, it happened in 1979-80. After I started to visit the Sannidhi Street House I think it must have been about 89 or 90. One that I told you those people were judging harshly. So my thoughts were running riot. I was boiling inside that those people should take it in that sense. And I was looking at Bhagwan. He is doing Vishwayagya. All the time. Smoking, He would also keep a piece of gooseberry in his mouth in order to mitigate the effects of smoking. So when I saw how much he was slogging for this Vishwayagya, suddenly I found him giving me a sharp glance. He always knew people's thoughts. He knew what those people were talking outside. He knew some of the thoughts that were running in my mind, racing through my mind. He didn't do anything except for the glance, but soon after that a strange thing happened. The burnt cigarette in the form of a cylinder, the shape of the cigarette, it was about 1 inch long. It kept its shape. It jumped out of that ashtray, which looked like a homakund to me, and it began to roll down. I was sitting on the lower platform, so immediately something drew me to it. It must be His grace that I looked at it at the right time, saw him rolling down, and immediately I held my hand so that it would drop into my hand. And then in a flash I remembered, when people do homa, they give this burnt ash there as raksha. It's a protection. We take that, the black smear from that, and then we put it on our forehead as raksha, as protection. So you see how God responds to our thoughts. When those people judged him harshly and left, they had no idea what they lost. The precious blessings of a great, great, great master. At the same time, I looked at the scene and I was thinking it was a Vishwayagya. Bhagwan was doing, Vishwa means world. So Bhagwan, by his smoking all the time, his smoking a cigarette was an yajna, yaga, that he was doing for the welfare of the world, for the peace of the world. The minute I thought it was Vishwayagya, I got the raksha from that homa. Please mark it, never make this mistake of mistaking his smoking for an ordinary habit. It was his yajna. The yajna can be done after gathering many ingredients and then calling the Shastris as prescribed in the Vedas. But the great masters didn't have to do it that way. One sankalpa, one thought in their pure mind would get the thing done. But sometimes they need a medium, they need something physical. So Bhagwan smoking a cigarette was his Vishwayagya, which he was doing all the time, unmindful of the harm it would cost him, his body. So do not be put off by the appearance of a cigarette in his hand when you happen to see his photographs. In fact, he used to tell me, because this beggar was smoking all the time, he also kept a piece of dry gooseberry, and this beggar has lost all sense of taste, Devi. No more can this beggar feel the taste of anything. This is their sacrifice. It's a sacrificial fire. It is the yajna that he was doing. And I just wanted to clear this. Now this Bhagwan, who was doing this Vishwayajna all his life, unknown to people, all the time, being subjected to criticism for that by people who could not understand. To this Bhagwan we shall submit our today's prayer. With one glance, you can burn up all the evil in the world. One glance of fire will burn out everything that is evil in the world. Rama could have just looked at Ravana and Ravana would have got burnt. But he took the form of a human being. He went through all those difficulties, all those sufferings, lived in the forest for 14 years. And he fought this Ravana like an ordinary king. Several days the war was going on, and finally he killed him. So these great people have their own way of doing it, and they do it in tune with the entire cosmos, the entire conduct, the entire run of the cosmos. So we say, Bhagwan, one glance, one fiery glance from you would do what we want today. Yet, for some reason, you have created it and we have invited it. So we beg you again and again for the bestowal of that grace which would free the entire humanity from the dreadful grip of this virus and bring back a dharmic normalcy based upon spiritual values, dharma, everywhere in the world, in every aspect of life. Bhagwan, we beg you again to root out all the negativities, especially the panic of the pandemic. Arrest the spread of the disease, the rapid spread of the disease, and enter all those medicines and make them work, make them kill this virus instantly, and bless all those great sevaks who sacrifice their everything, fighting the disease at the very risk of their life for the sake of the other lives. Please give them protection and all-round welfare. And again, a boost to economy is what we beg for. Above all, we know all the cruelties you have gone through, all the hardships that you went through in the streets of Tiruvannamalai, and all for our sake. When you could have easily had an ashram as huge as this from the beginning, with a huge following, you went into hiding, you suffered for all of us, but your name is the saving grace, the savior of mankind today. All those people who chant your name are instantly freed from their difficulties. We beg you to bless us with constant remembrance of this name, this divine name. Again, we want your blessings for the right attitude to life. We must become aware that we are only instruments in your hands, and we must become fitting and fine instruments in your hands. And we must go about our life as an offering to you. And again, above all, the most important thing is, bless us with this special virtue of seeing only your grace, only your presence and your grace in every happening of our life, every event of our life, be it a joy or sorrow, only your grace. Jai Yogi Ramsuratkumar.